And we are live. Welcome to another episode of AB Trap and Combat. And today we're going to be talking about David Benavidez versus Anthonyyarde. Let's get right into it. Man, this fight is going to go crazy. We have David Benavidez versus Anthonyyarde. Anthonyyarde is legit. I mean, he's a strong opponent. I feel like this is going to be fight of the year. I think this fight is going to be fireworks, man. We have the hard hitter Anthonyyarde, who have a lot of experience. Man, we got David Benavidez. He got 2 fights in at the 175-pound division. One was with Gusevich, Alexander Gusevich. The other one was with David Morrell. Great fights. Now we have Anthonyyarde. We have Anthonyyarde, who's on a 4 winning streak. He has a lot of experience. He fought Sergey Kovalev, the guy that Canelo fought. And he also fought Beterbiev, Artur Beterbiev. He had a great fight with Beterbiev until he got TKO'd. But he has a lot of experience. He's been at the 175-pound his whole career. He's comfortable, and, he brings that power, that pressure, and he, too, is always looking for the finish. David Benavidez, he has that overwhelming pressure, the speed, the size. I mean, the boy got hands. I'm a big fan of David Benavidez, but one thing that I hear a lot is that he hasn't really proven himself. He was a weight bully at 168 pounds. He fought guys that he towered over, and he was always chasing Canelo. And when I run into people like that, I feel like David Benavidez proved himself at 168 pounds. He beat everyone that accepted his challenge. He beat the champions at 168 pounds. He beat all the big names. He was chasing Canelo. Canelo never gave him the opportunity. I feel like he proved himself every opportunity that he got. And at 175 pounds is no different. Bivol didn't want to give him the opportunity. Beterbiev didn't want to give him the opportunity. Only people like Gusevich and David Morrell, who was chasing David Benavidez since they were both at 168 pounds together. Now we have Anthonyyarde, who accepted Benavidez' challenge, but he's not the number 1 contender. He's actually ranked number 4. David Benavidez offered all those guys above Yarde, and they all didn't want to fight Benavidez. So we have Anthonyyarde ranked number 4, who hasn't proven himself at the championship level yet. Now, I feel like this is kind of a fair fight for Yarde. If Yarde is going to be a champion, this is his moment. Yarde is fighting someone who just came up to the division, who's fairly new to the division, who hasn't really, found their footing in the division yet, although Benavidez is a champion. But you have Anthonyyarde, who has proven himself in the division, and now he has accepted the fight against Benavidez, which, thank you, Anthonyyarde. But I feel like Benavidez proves himself every opportunity he's able to prove himself. With David Morrell, that was a tough, bad blood fight. I mean, Benavidez got rocked. He got hit after the bell. It was a bad blood fight, but it was a great, intense fight. And both those fighters wanted to win, and you could tell. But Benavidez was just a little more hungrier. and he was going after his kill. Now, to talk a little bit about the David Benavidez versus Alexander Guzvik fight, which was his first fight in the 175-pound division. It was a good fight. Obviously, we all expected a little bit more from David Benavidez. I mean, coming from the 168-pound, being a knockout machine, you would think he would move up and, you know, the power would carry and it would show more. But that wasn't the case. I mean, Alexander Guzvik is a great, great fighter. He has a big amateur background. He's an Olympic winner. He's a he's just a great boxer overall. And for David Benavidez to not knock him out, it's understandable for me because doing a deep dive on Alexander Guzvik, you will realize like, damn, this dude is solid. And I thought Guzvik was actually gonna do a little bit more in the fight. He kind of got like a beat down out there, but it was still a good fight. And it went all 12 rounds. These guys actually sparred before. With David Morrell versus David Benavidez, like I said, bad blood, big fight. David Morrell been chasing Benavidez for years, been calling him out. And with that fight, we got a fight. Even though David Benavidez won, and he kind of won decisively, it was still a great performance from David Morrell. Great performance, and I think that put him on the map. With those two fights, David Benavidez didn't change his style. He still moved forward with the overwhelming pressure, with the combinations, the speed, the size, and, you know, he was still fighting the same way. I don't really see any difference. The power didn't carry over. He's been fighting 12 rounds a lot more. But that's what happens when you get to this level of boxing. The knockouts just go down because a lot of people are training very hard to not get knocked out, or during the fight, they go into survival mode to not get knocked out. Now, I feel like Anthonyyarde is going to be a tougher opponent than both David Morrell and Alexander Guzvik, just because I feel like I could still sense the hunger in him. Like, he's still very confident in himself. He's not, you know, giving into the media and really paying attention on how Benavidez is the favorite. I feel like Anthonyyarde is gonna bring it. I think what makes Anthonyyarde so different from Guzvik and David Morrell is that he brings a lot of power and aggression, and he's looking for the finish. You know, he's trying to back up his opponent, and he's trying to get in there and get down and dirty. David Morrell and Guzvik were more like boxers. They don't mind just jabbing away. But I feel like Anthonyyarde, he's not trying to jab you to death. He's really trying to finish you. So I think that's what makes Yarde so dangerous, because Benavidez hasn't had that opponent who comes forward, who possesses a lot of power, and who's been knocking out guys in the 175 pounds, while Benavidez hasn't even knocked out one of his opponents yet. So, like I said, Yarde is very comfortable and set in this division, and that's what makes him so dangerous in this fight. And let's not forget, Anthonyyarde has the experience against Kovalev and Beterbiev. two champions who he was finding success in the early rounds, but I feel like his cardio caught up to him and he just wasn't disciplined enough to, make it a long fight. I think the experience matter a lot because even though he lost, it's just that experience, you know, the feeling of, all right, I fought a champion before. I fought a dominant champion and Beterbiev before who was considered strong. And he found success a lot in the early rounds. I just feel like his cardio caught up to him. And Yarde is not, let me try to say this in a good way. He's not a calculated fighter. I feel like he's more successful in chaos, and he's more unpredictable and awkward instead of going with the game plan, sticking with the game plan, setting up traps, being patient. He's not that type of fighter. I feel like he thinks in the moment, and that's why he gets dragged into firefights too easy because he's just thinking in the moment and he's very confident in himself. So I feel like if he just slowed things down, I feel like he'll find a little more success in all his fights. I feel like if the fight becomes wild and chaotic and out of control, I feel like that's that's more of Yarde type of fight. You know, just freestyling. Let's just go at it. Like I feel like that's Yarde type of fight. Benavidez is gonna need a little a little bit of space to operate. You know, if things get wild in the inside, best believe Yarde will get the better of the exchanges. I feel like he's gonna be a little more faster in the inside. His speed, his strength, everything is going to be better in the inside for Yarde. Now, if the fight is mid range, long range, obviously, I feel like Benavidez is gonna take control in that type of distance. But if it gets close and it's wild, chaotic, I won't be surprised if Anthonyyarde clips Benavidez. Just have to be realistic. I do believe that Yarde has the right skill set to make Benavidez uncomfortable and possibly back him up, especially in the first rounds. I think Benavidez is going to be very hesitant and not scared, but very hesitant with Yarde's power and making sure he don't get into a firefight, a dog fight in the middle of the ring. Benavidez wants to make sure if he attacks, Yarde is against the ropes, you know, but not in the middle of the ring. No. I think if it's in the middle of the ring, I think Yarde is going to find success, a lot of success in catching Benavidez. And let me tell you, David Benavidez is a smart fighter. I think he acknowledged that Yarde is going to be very dangerous. He possesses a lot of power, and he's not gonna go out there trying to get into a firefight. He's gonna try to jab him away, use his reach, use his height, his size, and keep Yarde at the distance and make sure Yarde needs to basically lunge in to catch David Benavidez, and that's when David Benavidez could take advantage of the mistake. I feel like David Benavidez is going to have a good, strong game plan, going to be very patient, but I feel like if he does get into a firefight, and if he does get clipped by Yarde, Yarde is a good finisher. He chases you, and he doesn't give you space. He goes for the finish. Benavidez has to be very careful, very careful. It's boxing, so he could always get clipped, knocked down. We haven't seen that with Benavidez. Is he prepared for that? But same thing with Yarde. We seen Yarde get finished. But once again, it's a whole different division. Yarde been here. He's comfortable. He's set. David is still getting his feet wet. I don't know. Morel clipped Benavidez. Benavidez did a great job at surviving. He recovered in like 1 second. But like with Yarde, bigger man, known for his power, you know, I just I feel like it's going to be worse if Benavidez get hurt than if Yarde gets hurt in the early rounds. For Yarde to win, I feel like he needs to get close to Benavidez, make this a brawl, make this uncomfortable. Push Benavidez against the ropes. A lot of clinching, a lot of uppercuts. Make this a ugly fight. Kind of drown Benavidez. Don't give him any space to operate, and just be very careful with the body shots. It's another thing. I think Benavidez is gonna focus a lot on the body to slow Yarde down and to slow that power down. Yarde needs to make sure he's not relying on just landing one big shot and hoping that he's going to hurt Benavidez. I think he has to have a B C D game plan and make sure. Although I know I'm saying that he will find more success in the inside, but also really train on how to get inside. You know, your entrance of getting inside of using your angles on Benavidez, and you know making sure he's not, because Benavidez is heavy on his feet. So if Yarde could make him spin and get him confused with his angles, and really make this fight tough, then I feel like Yarde could really possibly get the win. But it's gonna be, that's not how Yarde fights. So like Yarde is more like just coming forward and meeting you right here in the middle of the ring, and let's see what happens. So I do feel like Benavidez has different ways of winning this fight. But once again, let's see what happens when Benavidez feels that power. Will he back up a little bit? Will he, be a little hesitant in what he does? We just have to wait for fight night. For my prediction, I'm going with David Benavidez. I'm rooting for my guy, David Benavidez. I do think this is going to be his toughest fight up to date. I think this is going to be fight of the year. I mean, that Brian Norman versus Devin Haney, it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be better than what we think. But, Benavidez versus Yarde, I think this is going to be a crazy one. Fireworks. Man, it's just, I feel like David Benavidez hasn't fought someone like Anthony Yarde, who comes forward and looking for blood, and I'm here, man. I'm here. I'm looking for the finish, and he's not scared of Benavidez. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a big test for Benavidez. A big test. We're gonna see what happens, but shout out to both guys. You know, even though I'm rooting for Benavidez, I'm still a fan of Anthonyyarde, and if he wins, I'm gonna be as happy if Benavidez won. You feel me? Gotta run it back. It was a great fight, but all I'm hoping is that this fight delivers and the fans are not disappointed. You feel me? But that's all I got for you. Don't forget to drop a like, a subscribe, a comment, a share, do all that good stuff for me. Until next time.